Today we're going to dive into a topic that I think has a lot of confusion in the fitness industry, and it's our menstrual cycle and how it truly affects our health and fitness goals and what we should be doing from month to month to navigate it. So our menstrual cycle is not a weakness. It's not something to overcome or technically work around. It's a sign that your body is healthy and your hormones are working correctly. But here's what most fitness content gets wrong. People will tell you you either need to learn how to cycle sync and change your life every time your period comes. You need to schedule your training by your cycle, phase it down, change what you eat, change all of it. Or they act like your cycle doesn't matter at all and that you should just push the same regardless. And both are wrong in my opinion. The truth is somewhere in the middle. Your cycle creates real physiological changes, and understanding them helps you train smarter, but you don't need to be rigid about it and you don't need to upheave your whole life every time it comes. We need to learn to listen to our body, make adjustments when necessary, and stay consistent with our goals. So today I'm going to walk you through exactly what happens during your cycle, how it affects your training, your body, and how to work with it instead of against it. So this is all practical, it's applicable, it's science-backed, and it's realistic. So let's dive into it. First off, let's talk about the menstrual cycle 101. If you don't know the phases of your cycle, I want to give you a quick breakdown. This is foundational to understanding everything else, and if I'm honest, I didn't understand my cycle and all the phases until I was probably about 32. So the menstrual cycle is typically 28 days long, though 21 to 35 days are considered normal, and it's driven by 4 primary hormones. We have the follicle stimulating hormone, which is called FSH. We have the luteinizing hormone, which is LH. We have estrogen and progesterone. So these hormones rise and fall in a very predictable pattern every month, and that pattern creates 4 distinct phases of our cycle. So phase 1 is our menstrual cycle, and it's typically 1 to 5 days long. And this is where you're actively bleeding. Your uterine lining is shedding because pregnancy didn't occur. So hormonally, estrogen and progesterone are at their lowest during this time. So FSH, the follicle stimulating hormone, is starting to rise to signal the beginning of a new cycle. What you might feel during this time is fatigue, lower energy, possible cramping, lower back pain, and slightly lower motivation. So let's talk about how that affects our training. This is typically the phase where energy is the lowest. Some women feel fine and can train normally. Some women need to scale it back on the intensity slightly or just do lighter or more recovery-focused work. Now, phase 2 is the follicular phase. That's days 6 through 14. So FSH rises, which stimulates the follicles in your ovaries to start developing eggs. So estrogen rises as the follicles mature. Hormonally, this is when estrogen is climbing, but progesterone is still low. So what you might feel during this time is increased energy, a better mood, improved motivation, clearer thinking, and better sleep. And the way that it affects your training is this is typically when you're going to feel your strongest. Your body is more insulin sensitive, your mood is elevated, your motivation is high. So this is when a lot of women naturally want to push harder and your body's more equipped to handle it. Now, phase 3 is ovulation, and that's days 14 through 16. So your LH surges, triggering the release of an egg from your ovary. So there's a brief peak in both estrogen and LH at this time. Hormonally, this is the peak for estrogen throughout your month. So what you might feel is peak energy, peak mood, peak motivation. This is the phase where a lot of women feel their best, they feel sexy, they feel good. So how this affects your training is this is when you can push harder. Your neuromuscular function is optimal, your mood is at its best, your energy is at its highest. So if you're going to go for a PR or push intensity, then this is a phase to do it in. Now phase 4 is our luteal phase, and that's days 17 through 28. So after ovulation, the corpus luteum forms and it produces progesterone. So progesterone rises throughout this phase. Estrogen stays moderate, but it drops by the end of it. So hormonally, this is when progesterone is dominant. So what you might feel is gradually decreasing energy, a slightly lower mood, increased hunger and cravings, bloating, and potentially lower motivation. Your sleep might also be less restorative at this time. So the way this affects your training is this is when you might need to scale it back slightly, not because you're weak or broken, but because your body is naturally in a different state with less energy. So your metabolism is slightly higher, so you're actually burning more calories, your core temperature is higher, and your body is preparing for your next cycle. So at a high level, that's the basic framework of how a menstrual cycle works. So now let's talk about what actually happens in your body and how it affects your training. First, we're going to dig into strength training and performance across your cycle. So here's what the research shows. A study in the Journal of Applied Physiology found that women's muscle strength varies across their cycle. Not like men, they always feel strong. We have peak strength during our ovulatory and early luteal phases when our estrogen is high. And we have the lowest strength during our menstruation when our hormones are at their lowest. But here's what's important, and the difference is small. We're talking about maybe a 5 to 10% variation. It's not massive, but it is measurable. So if you normally deadlift 185 pounds, you might find it easier during ovulation, where 195 might feel reasonable, and slightly harder during menstruation, where 175 feels heavy. But you're not becoming weak, you're just experiencing a natural fluctuation caused by hormones. So the key insight here is this doesn't mean you stop lifting heavy, it means you just listen to your energy and your body and adjust accordingly. So here's what I recommend. During menstruation, days 1 through 5, if you're the type of person who has heavy flow, low energy, and cramps, then this is when I would recommend focusing more on active recovery, which means maybe shifting your strength training days to later in the week. So focus on walking, light movement, mobility work. If your energy is fine, then lift as normal, but don't be forcing PRs at this time. Just listen to how you feel. During my period, I work out on the same schedule as I work out any other time of the month. I don't adjust the days I exercise, I just adjust the weights I lift if my body's feeling weak. Now, during the follicular phase, days 6 through 14, your energy is rising. This is when you could start pushing harder if you want to. Your body's more equipped to handle it. And then ovulation, days 14 through 16, you're at peak everything. This is when you feel strong, most motivated, most capable, most horny. So you're gonna go for the PR, push your intensity. This is the ideal window. And then during our luteal phase, days 17 through 28, energy is declining. Your body is naturally more catabolic. So this is when I recommend maintaining your training, but not necessarily pushing for new maxes. You can still lift heavy, but you might need to scale it back on volume slightly or accept that the weight just might feel heavier, but listen to your body overall. Now, the biggest mistake I see a lot of women make is thinking that they have to fully adjust their life, their schedule, their eating around their cycle. And the truth is you don't. If you feel good, lift heavy. If you don't feel good, scale it back. That should be a rule in life in general, not just based on your menstrual cycle. But most women find that during their luteal phase, they naturally want to do slightly less intense work, and that's okay. That's listening to your body. It's not falling off track. Now let's talk about cramping and why exercise can actually help. And this is the part that surprises most women. If you used to be less healthy and now you started exercising and you realize that you used to have terrible period pains, lots of cramps, lots of lower back pain, and now you notice that it's not as aggressive, that's not a coincidence. It's because your body is responding to regular exercise. So I'm gonna explain the mechanism here because this was the case for me. I used to have terrible, debilitating periods. I felt awful. I would have terrible lower back pains, lots of cramping. And as I got healthier and healthier and the more muscle mass I built, the less impactful my periods became. So what causes menstrual cramps? Menstrual cramps are caused by prostaglandins, which is a hormone-like substance that causes your uterine muscles to contract to help expel the uterine lining. So the more of this you have in your body and the more your body produces, the worse the cramps. So when they're elevated, your uterus contracts more forcefully, which creates pain. So when you exercise, your body releases endorphins, which are neurotransmitters that act as a natural painkiller. Endorphins bind to the same receptors that pain signals use. So essentially what it does is it blocks the pain message. But that's not the only mechanism. Exercise also improves blood flow to the pelvic area, which helps oxygen-rich blood reach the muscles and reduce the cramping. And regular exercise over time actually reduces the overall production of those prostaglandins, so you produce less of the hormone-like substance that causes cramps in the first place. So this is why I've seen it across hundreds of thousands of women that the healthier they get, the more they exercise, the stronger their fitness becomes, their period pain decreases, and sometimes it disappears entirely. Most months, I don't have any cramps or any signs of my period coming other than maybe some slight bloating. And the research backs this up. A study published in the Journal of Sports Medicine found that women who exercise regularly experience significantly less menstrual pain than sedentary women. Another study found that exercise is as effective as ibuprofen for managing menstrual pain. Think about that. Exercise literally works as a painkiller. So then the question is, what kind of exercise helps the most? It's typically light to moderate intensity is best for managing acute cramping. So 20 to 30 minute walks, yoga, strength training can significantly reduce the pain in the moment. So more intense exercise can help, but if you're in acute pain, you don't want to push too hard, but even gentle movements help. So my recommendation is if you have significant period pain and cramps, this is not a time to push hard, but it is a time to move your body. Walk, do strength training, stretch, move your body. The movement itself is the medicine. And over time, as you build up your fitness level, the pains will naturally decrease. And I used to have terrible cramps, lower back pain all the time, and now I barely notice my period. And it's directly because I exercise regularly and I got more healthy. But you have to build up to that point. In the beginning, if you have severe cramping, you might need to scale it back or focus on lighter work. That's not a weakness, that's listening to your body and giving it what it needs. Now let's talk about sleep and recovery. So something a lot of women don't realize is your quality of sleep actually changes across your cycle. And let's talk about how hormones affect sleep. Progesterone has a sedative effect. It makes you sleepy. So during your luteal phase, when your progesterone is high, you might feel more tired. But on the other hand, your sleep quality might be lower. Also, estrogen supports REM sleep. So the phase where you dream and your brain consolidates memories. During the follicular phase, when estrogen is high, you typically sleep better. And then during menstruation, in the luteal phase, when estrogen is low, your REM sleep decreases. So you get less restorative sleep. And the research shows that in a study of the Sleep Foundation found that women in the luteal phase, when progesterone is high, took longer to fall asleep, had more night wakings, and had lower sleep efficiency compared to during the follicular phase. Another study found that body temperature is higher during the luteal phase, which can interfere with sleep quality. So what you might experience is during your follicular phase, you might have better sleep and wake up more refreshed and have more REM sleep. And then during your luteal phase, you might have more frequent night wakings, a harder time falling asleep, more restless sleep, and you might feel less rested when you wake up, despite if you slept the same number of hours. So what do we do with this? We have to acknowledge that during the luteal phase, sleep disruption is real and biological. So it's not that we're doing anything wrong, but what helps is keeping our bedroom cooler so our core temperature can drop because it's naturally higher during this phase, maintaining consistent sleep times. So our circadian rhythm is sensitive to hormonal fluctuations. Avoiding caffeine in the afternoon. Progesterone already makes you tired, and poor sleep can impair that effect. We also want to try to wind down earlier, so give ourselves more time to get to that restful place. I would recommend blue light blocking glasses after sunset to help. And this is important. If you're sleeping poorly during your luteal phase, be gentle with your training. Poor sleep impairs recovery, which means your body can't handle the same volume of training. And this is another reason to scale back slightly during that phase. Now, bloating, water retention, and digestive problems are something a lot of women experience alongside their menstrual cycle. So this is the phase that impacts most women, is the luteal phase bloating. So what's actually happening is our progesterone increases during our luteal phase, and that progesterone affects sodium and water balance in our body. So it causes our kidneys to retain more sodium, which means your body retains more water. Additionally, progesterone slows our digestive system, so it gently reduces our gut motility. So our food doesn't digest as quickly. And this slower digestion combined with water retention creates a bloating sensation. So it's not fat gain, it's water retention and slower digestion. So a study in the Journal of Women's Health found that women retain an average of 2 to 3 pounds of water during their luteal phase, and that's measurable water retention. It's not just perception. So if you feel like the scale jumps a few pounds every time you're about to get your period, it is absolutely true. Another study found that gastrointestinal symptoms, the bloating, constipation, and gas, significantly increase during the luteal phase due to progesterone's effect on gut motility. So what you might experience is during the follicular and ovulatory phases, you might feel lighter, less bloated, faster digestion, a flatter stomach, more regular bowel movements. And then during the luteal phase, you're gonna feel bloated, water retention, clothes fitting tighter, possible constipation, and slower digestion and gassiness. So first we need to understand that this is normal. We're not gaining fat, but our body is retaining water and our digestion is happening more slowly. So it will go away as our cycle resets. The second thing is we need to adjust our expectations slightly. Don't weigh yourself during the luteal phase if you don't have to. If you do, just understand that the number includes water weight that you're gaining from the bloating. We could increase our fiber intake slightly to counteract the slower digestion. We could increase our water intake. I know it sounds backwards, but staying hydrated actually helps reduce water retention. And we just need to be gentle with ourselves about how our clothes fit. They might be tighter. I know for me right now, I'm in my luteal phase. I'm feeling super bloated. I feel like my stomach's very distended, and that's just biology. The last thing is we don't use that bloating as an excuse to fall off of our nutritional plan. So we might feel puffy, but we still need to aim for our protein goals, our fiber goals, and staying within our macros. The bloating is temporary, your goals are not. There's an important distinction to acknowledge here between bloating and water retention. They are not the same as fat gain. If you gain 3 pounds during your luteal phase, it's all water and it'll come off when your cycle resets. But a lot of women freak out, they cut calories, they restrict food, then they binge because they're uncomfortable and hungry, and that's when actual fat gain happens. So the solution is acceptance and consistency. Yes, you're gonna feel bloated. Yes, the scale might go up. No, it's not fat. Keep your nutrition consistent and the bloating will pass. Now, another thing that women struggle with a lot during their period and their cycle is their appetite increasing, cravings, and feeling like their metabolism is slowed. So this is real. Your appetite does actually increase during your luteal phase, and it's not all in your head. So what's happening is progesterone is increasing, so your metabolic rate during your luteal phase goes up, so you're burning more calories, roughly 100 to 300 more during those days, depending on the individual. But progesterone also increases your appetite, so your brain is signaling, we're burning more, so eat more. Additionally, progesterone affects our serotonin levels. So when serotonin dips, your brain craves carbs and fats because those nutrients increase serotonin. So you're not just hungry, but you're specifically hungry for carbs and fats. It's like a whirlwind working against you. So a landmark study found that women in their luteal phase typically consume an average of 300 to 500 more calories per day than during the follicular phase. This isn't random, it's biological. Another study found that cravings for high fat and high carb foods significantly increase during the luteal phase. And here's the key. Studies show that eating slightly more during your luteal phase doesn't result in fat gain necessarily. You'll just adjust back down during your follicular phase. So it's a cyclical calorie balance, not a one-way street. So this is why I always tell my clients, if you're ravenously hungry, give yourself more fuel, but try to focus on it being protein and fiber heavy so that you actually stay satiated. So what you might experience is during your follicular phase, you have normal appetite, it's easier to stick to your nutrition plan, you have less cravings. And then during your luteal phase, you have increased hunger, specific cravings for carbs and fats, and feeling like you need to eat the whole house. So first we have to understand this is normal. Your body is not broken, you're not lacking willpower, you're just experiencing a real biological increase in appetite. The second thing is we need to adjust slightly. You can eat slightly more during the luteal phase. An extra 100 to 200 calories is reasonable and expected based on your hunger cues. And make sure that you're eating your carbs for the day and healthy fats during this phase, because that might be what your body is craving. But if you need to eat above your macros, I always recommend that being either high fiber foods or protein-based foods so that you're not going wildly over your calories on accident. So aim for your protein targets and high fiber, non-negotiable. The last one is don't use your cycle as an excuse to lose control. Increased appetite does not mean eat whatever you want. It means eat more, but with intention. So choose foods that satisfy the cravings while supporting your goals. So if you want chocolate, have some chocolate. You want carbs, have some carbs. Aim for carbs that have fiber and protein, so they're more satiating. And then fourth is we need to recognize that this is all temporary. So once our cycle resets, our appetite will go back to normal, but the increase is real and it's not permanent. So you can maintain your goals even with the cyclical appetite changes that come with your cycle. But this is where a lot of people say that they have to cycle sync and change the foods they eat during their period. It doesn't have to be that complicated. If you're hungry, eat more. If you're not hungry, don't eat more. We don't have to change everything that we eat in order to support our cycle. Yes, if we're prioritizing high quality whole foods, that at a baseline should be enough. Now, I do want to address something that throws a wrench in some of this, and it's hormonal birth control and how it changes everything. So I want to address this because a lot of women are on some form of hormonal birth control, and it completely changes the physiological picture that I described earlier. So let's talk about how hormonal birth control works. Hormonal birth control works by suppressing your natural cycle. So instead of your body producing the natural fluctuations of the FSH, the LH, the estrogen, and the progesterone, you're taking synthetic versions of those hormones or synthetic hormones that mimic them. So the goal is to prevent ovulation, which prevents pregnancy. So what does this mean for our cycle? When we're on hormonal birth control, you don't have a natural cycle. You have a controlled hormonal pattern that is designed by medication. So different forms work differently. The pill contains synthetic estrogen and progestin, which is a synthetic progesterone. You take it daily, usually stopping for 7 days to allow a withdrawal bleed, which mimics a period, but it's not actually a period. During the pill-taking days, your hormones are stable. There's no natural fluctuation. During the 7-day break, hormone levels drop, which triggers the bleed. Now, the depot shot, you get an injection every 12 weeks and it releases synthetic progesterone continuously. Your hormones are constantly elevated and stable. There's no cyclical fluctuation at all. And for most women on depot, their period stops entirely because progesterone levels are so high that the uterine lining doesn't build up enough to shed. Now, the NuvaRing, similar to the pill, is released through a flexible ring that's inserted into the vagina for 3 weeks. You remove it for a week, you have a withdrawal bleed. The hormonal pattern is similar to the pill, so it's stable while the ring is in and it drops during the ring-free week. The Mirena IUD releases synthetic progesterone directly into your uterus for up to 5 years. So your uterus experiences high progesterone, but systematically hormone levels are lower than others. Your uterus experiences high progesterone, but systematically hormone levels are lower than with other methods. So many women stop having periods because their uterine lining is so suppressed. So if you're on hormonal birth control, you likely don't experience the cycle-based changes in strength, sleep, bloating, cravings, because your hormones aren't fluctuating. So this sounds good, no cramping, no bloating, predictable everything, but it also means that you're not experiencing the natural rhythm your body is designed for. I was on the depot shot, the NuvaRing, the Mirena IUD, and I couldn't figure out what my natural cycle was or how my body worked because I was constantly on synthetic hormones. So when I got off all hormonal birth control, I finally understood my body better. I could see the natural fluctuations. I could feel the differences in my energy, my strength, my mood across the phases. And that understanding has made me a better coach because I can help women understand what's actually happening in their body versus what the birth control is masking and controlling. So if you're on hormonal birth control, the physiological information I gave you earlier doesn't apply to you the same way. Your hormones are being controlled by the medication. The strength changes, the sleep disruptions, bloating, cravings are being suppressed or altered. But here's what I want you to understand. Getting off hormonal birth control to understand your body better is a personal decision that should be made with medical advice, not just fitness advice. Hormonal birth control serves important purposes beyond contraception. But if you get off of it, which I did, give yourself time to understand your body, give it time to get back to a baseline. It takes a few cycles to recognize the patterns, but once you see them, it makes training so much easier because you could work with your body instead of against it. Okay, so we covered a lot today. Here's how to actually use this information. Your cycle creates real physiological changes. We need to understand them. We need to listen to our body and make adjustments when necessary, but stay consistent with our goals. So we don't have to cycle sync, and we don't need to rigidly schedule our training by phase. We just need to listen to our body and adjust intelligently. So during the menstrual phase, days 1 through 5, if you have heavy flow and low energy, focus on active recovery, walking, light yoga, gentle strength training. This isn't laziness, it's just listening to your body's cues. If your energy is fine, train normally. If you can still lift heavy, do it. If you have cramping and pain, then move your body. The movement is medicine, so light to moderate intensity is best, and this is actually going to reduce those period pains. Then during the follicular phase, days 6 through 14, our energy is rising, our body is more insulin sensitive, so this is when you naturally feel like pushing harder. Your body is equipped to handle it. If you've been taking it easy during menstruation, use this phase to build back up in intensity. You can start doing heavier sets, more volume, more intensity. This is not a requirement. If you already felt good during menstruation, just continue. But this is the phase where progression may feel easiest. During your ovulatory phase, days 14 through 16, this is peak everything. Peak energy, peak mood, peak libido, peak strength, peak motivation. This is the ideal time for PRs, higher intensity, pushing hard. Your neuromuscular system is optimized. Your mood is at its best. So if you're gonna go for new maxes, try new workouts, push intensity, do it here because your body is most equipped for it. Then during the luteal phase, days 17 through 28, our energy is declining. We're experiencing bloating, water retention, slower digestion, increased appetite. Our sleep might be less restorative. So this is when I recommend maintaining your training, but potentially scaling back slightly. You can still lift heavy, but you might lift 5 to 10% lighter than you normally do during your follicular and ovulatory phases. You can still do the same volume if you feel comfortable with it, but it's not essential. And this isn't a hard rule. If you feel good, lift heavy. Most women find during this phase their body naturally wants less intensity, and that's okay. That's listening to your body. You're still training, you're still building, you're just being intelligent about the way your body needs recovery. So just keep in mind, these cognizant changes are not cycle syncing. You're not rigidly scheduling training based off of exact days in your cycle. You're just listening to your energy levels and adjusting accordingly. Some cycles you might feel strong during the luteal phase, some you might feel weak. Some cycles the phase might shift. We just have to remember our body is not a machine. So this is a framework and a guide. Your energy levels and how you feel should be the actual signals you use to determine what to do. So the whole point of this is that you stay consistent. You don't fall off of your training. You don't stop trying to build muscle or lose fat during any part of the phase, but you recognize that consistency looks different throughout different times of the month. And during some phases, consistency might be go for a PR, and during other phases, it might be hit the same weight for the same reps, even though it feels heavy. Some phases, it might be, I'm skipping the gym and I'm just gonna walk. But all of those things are important. And I want to address something directly because I've been here. I lost my period probably 5 times in my life, and each time was because of the same root causes. Overtraining, undereating, not consuming enough fats, my body fat getting too low, and each time my body did exactly what it should do. It shut down my menstrual cycle to preserve energy for survival. This is not a sign of strength. This is a sign that your body is in crisis. So amenorrhea is the loss of menstruation, and it means that your body doesn't have enough energy to support both training and normal biological functions. So it prioritizes survival and shuts down reproduction. So the consequences long-term can be dangerous. It's loss of bone density. That's permanent. You can regain it later, but if you stay on that track, you're going to continue to lose bone density. Decreasing muscle building capacity. Hormonal dysfunction. It could take months or years to resolve. Increased injury risk, decreased athletic performance, and getting leaner is not the goal if it means losing your period. Stronger is not the goal if it means not training smart. Better is not the goal if it costs you your health. So I thought I was being disciplined, and I was actually being self-destructive at periods of time in my life with my fitness. So if you're training hard and eating well, your body should menstruate. And if it doesn't, then something is wrong. And the fix is typically increasing calories, especially fat, decreasing training or volume or cardio. But if you've lost your period due to training and under eating, please know that's not normal and it needs to be addressed. Your cycle is a sign of health, and the goal is to get it back, not to accept that as the cost of fitness. So here's what I want you to walk away with understanding. Your menstrual cycle is not a problem to be managed. It's a sign your body is working correctly. The physiological changes across your cycle are real. So strength varies slightly, sleep quality changes, appetite increases, you retain water, and your energy fluctuates. These changes don't mean you can't train hard or build muscle or lose fat. They just mean you have to work with your body instead of against it. So listen to your energy levels. If you feel strong, lift heavy. If you feel tired, scale back. If you're in pain, move gently. Your body knows what it needs. But more than anything, stay consistent with your goals. Consistency doesn't mean doing the exact same thing every day. It means showing up and doing what your body is equipped for on that day. Don't use your cycle as an excuse to fall off, but also don't push through genuine exhaustion or pain because you think you're supposed to. There can be a balance. And finally, if you lose your period, that's a sign something is wrong. Your cycle is health. We need to protect it. It's worth more than being a few pounds lighter and training an extra hour per week. We don't need to be overdoing it. Our body is not the enemy to be conquered. It's a system to be understood and worked with. And when you do that, everything will get easier.